Welcome to the pod.
All right. Welcome back. Another episode of Two Chassids in the pod. We're so sorry that we haven't been, putting out the content, but amazing, spontaneous opportunity today to sit down.
Well, recently we had Rudy. So,
we had Rudy. If you haven't seen that, check that out.
We're getting back into it.
And now we have, Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Yom Tov Glaser, all the way from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, that came up to Tzfat and spontaneously decided to come sit down with us. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to do this with you guys last time, but whenever I come to Tzfat overnight, it's always with this partner of mine who's a hidden
gem.
Yeah, very Kabbalistic dude who we'll be up like late at night doing intensive work together, and you had offered the podcast. I was like, I would have loved to do that, but I can't. So this time he's going to bed early. I'm staying there, but he's going to bed early, and you were the first people I thought of when I thought whether I'd stay tonight.
Baruch Hashem, a big schut. So thank you very much. Just give a little bit of a background. If anybody does recognize Rav Yom Tov Glaser, it's either most likely from two main things that the Rav has been working on for many years. That one was 30 plus years at Aish Hatorah in Jerusalem, and also that you have the Possible You seminar that's over 10,000 people have already participated in it, and you've changed many lives of very close friends to me. You had an influence on me in my tshuva process in a little bit of discovery classes in Aish Hatorah. I would hop in there to see a little bit of what's going on, and your class has always had me on the edge of my seat. So let's. What is your story? How did you become your Yom Tov Glaser that everyone knows? L'chaim. That's very good. Mi shenichnas adar marvim b'simcha. L'chaim.
By the way, we have a very interesting way of meeting also. We should mention.
Who?
Me and Yom Tov. Actually, it's not me, but more so my wife, or how I got to know my wife.
Can I tell that story real quick?
Yeah, go. To start off, to see the ashgachot pratit that you get in just meeting Jews in Tzfat. You never know where you're going to go.
It's a crazy story.
Yeah, we actually know each other. I didn't realize it was you until I, realized tonight.
When you walked in.
When I walked in. But I had brought a group of businessmen to Costa Rica to do extra deep work there. I travel with graduates of the Possible You to exotic locations, and this was super exotic. I mean, it's like the edge of the universe. She has to bring you there sometime. Really the edge of the universe. I mean, we had to cross rivers to get there and through jungles, and it was hours and hours. And anyway, but there we were on the edge of the universe, and we had this mansion, and every morning I'd be surfing the waves of Costa Rica, and then go wake up all the businessmen to get them started with the next day's experiences. And anyway, so what happened was we had three helpers. One was a chef or two chefs and one cleaner, but they would all clean also. I couldn't figure it out exactly, but there were three little Costa Rican ladies. But one day there was four.
And the fourth was different.
Yeah. Well, I did notice the fourth was different. And she was kind of hanging in the kitchen with them. And but she was clearly like a little different than they were. But I paid no attention because I'm busy with these guys. Anyway, eventually, I don't know how she got my attention, but I guess I was walking by at one point and she was like, psst, psst. and I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I'm not a Costa Rican housekeeper. Although, again, this is my memory, really. She'd probably do a better job than me. She said, I'm not a Costa Rican housekeeper. And I'm like, yeah, you seem a little different. And it turns out she's from Toronto, and she's at a yoga retreat in Costa Rica where the guy who provided us those helpers was running a Costa Rica retreat, meaning a yoga retreat, where she does in I think 2 months a year in different places all year round. And how did he know us? I had hired him because he plays 21 instruments. Wow. And he led my group in an all-night meditation. And really beautiful job he did with us. And it was just gorgeous. And then, but when he went back to his yoga retreat, he says to her, there's a Rebbe in the jungle. And she's like, a Rebbe in the jungle? And you should go talk to him. And that's what she was doing. She was coming to talk to me. Wow. And so I went to my guys. I said, I'll be back in an hour. I need some time with this lady. And we sat down. And it was so clear to me and this happens sometimes, it was so clear to me that there was one place for her, and that was Sfat. She has to be in Sfat. And I don't mean visit. She has to be in Sfat, and here we are in your home
house.
in Sfat.
That's crazy.
And she has to be in Sfat, and that was it. Went back to the guys, and I don't remember what happened after that, but eventually...
I can tell you how it happened after that.
Somehow she
I can
got
fill in some gaps.
Yeah.
She told me, like, you told her to go right away to Tzfat. Like, she was in this retreat, and she already started doing some tshuva, and but she wanted to do this retreat and tried to do it the Jewish way, and her Rebbetzin said, be careful. She was just doing tshuva at this moment. Like, be careful, like, for Avodah Zarah. And she quickly realized she was surrounded by Avodah Zarah.
Wow.
And she wanted something Jewish. And then she found out about you, and she went there for, I guess, guidance.
Thanks for filling that in.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then afterwards, she came really quickly to Tzfat. She came to, I think, first to Toronto, right? Yeah. And then she quickly, how long did it take you? From a month? Okay. A month after she was in Tzfat.
That's really quick.
And guess what? The exact same day that she came to Tzfat is the day we met.
No way.
Yeah. And
oh my gosh.
And we haven't been able to get rid of each other since. We even have Hashem, a son now. We're of course married.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch
See,
Hashem.
one little conversation, a little bit of time,
It happens and happens and happens and happens, and I just always want to tell people that when you see somebody, no matter who it is, and you're wondering if you should say something, the answer is yes, you should. You should always say something, because you know what? The worst thing that happens, the guy or the woman says, "Not interested," and that was it. But to take for granted, to say that maybe they wouldn't be interested, but maybe they would.
And if they are,
it's
they meet their husband on the first day, they listen.
Right. It's like, anyway, but we are all
to your marriage.
L'chaim, yeah, L'chaim.
Advice.
Anyway, but we all have to realize that we're put everywhere we are, we're put there. Everywhere we're put there. And especially when it comes to pivotal conversations in other people's lives. Like you have to know that this is the pivotal moment. Now, you can make yourself crazy, like every time you sit on an airplane. You're sitting there, this must be that pivotal moment. And you look at the guy next to you and you're like, well, it's a good thing we have 12 hours. The guy's like, I was planning on sleeping. Do you know how many flights I took years ago, where no one slept a wink? We spent the whole time, just a whole group of people surrounding, and we just learned the entire time about Hashem and Torah.
Wow. In the clouds.
Whole birthright groups, they weren't planning on sleeping on that flight. They just wanted to ask a million questions,
It's amazing. It's amazing. So that was a nice little introductory story, but how do we get to the Possible You seminar? How does that even...
Oh, well, you had asked how I got.
Who are you? Who are you? There's some
so,
people here that don't know.
Yeah, so I just I'm one of those people that it was better I wasn't in school. Certain people, if they're not in school, it's going to go downhill quick. And there's other people that if you keep them in school, it's not going to be good. And so as a very young man, I'm saying maybe 5 years old, I would say, kindergarten, I already knew that the people were not telling me truth in the kindergarten. How do you get sent out of kindergarten? I got sent out every single day of kindergarten.
What? Wow.
Every single day I got sent out. And the same thing happened in first grade and second grade and third grade. Every single day. By fourth grade, I had a cool teacher. She kind of could handle me. That was cool. Fifth grade, though, was back to that same garbage. And I said, that's it, I'm out. And that was it. I never really went back to school.
From middle school?
From 11 years old, yeah. I dropped
And this is where? California?
Is in Los Angeles, in one of the wealthiest communities in the world.
It's a secular school.
Secular school, yeah, public school. But the thing is that's so amazing about it is that, and I only realized this recently. I can't remember where I realized this. I don't know if it was a podcast I was listening to, or it was a book I was reading, or it was a documentary on YouTube. I can't remember what it was. But what it was about is that shamans, who are, the medicine men of the world, they're not part of their culture. Meaning, if you go to a shaman in Brazil, you're in the Amazon of Brazil, or you're in the Amazon of Colombia, or in Peru, you would think, if you're going to the medicine man, that he's part of the culture that's probably of the city and closest to that part of the jungle. Like he's from there, or at least he's from that jungle community. They're not. They're these interesting people. They're probably from the tribe they live in. They're not part of the tribe. They don't.
They're disconnected.
And that way they have insight into the tribe to help the tribe. Because if you're if you're dipped in the same stuff the people you're trying to help are dipped in, you don't have the same kind of insight into them, because you yourself are looking out from the same fish tank. Try to get a fish to describe water. You're so in it, you can't describe it.
Wow.
And so, anyway, so I learned this recently, and I realized, oh my gosh, that's me. That's me. That's what I'm doing. Why? Because how do you become an American? If Mexicans move to America, they're Mexicans living in America, but their kids are Americans, full on. No accent, perfect English. Japanese people, the same thing. They're Japanese living in, America, but their kids are Americans, full on. Mm-hmm. Persians, they're such Persians. Their kids, Americans. And I left, so where did they become American? Public school. Mm-hmm. But I left public school. I left it when I was 11, and I wasn't much for it before I was 11, as you heard. So I'm not really in it. So years later, when I became observant, on a fluke, my father's business went bankrupt. He lost his mansion and all his money, and which was perfect because I got a free ticket from Aish Hatorah to study in Jerusalem. It's like, when did I ever want to? Right. I had no interest, first of all, in coming to Israel, and certainly didn't need free tickets when my father was in business. Suddenly, I need tickets. And the trick was I had to go to Europe for surfing. And so I just took the flight to Israel.
Where do you surf in Europe?
France, Spain, and Portugal. Oh. Actually, England
Portugal,
also.
Biggest wave ever surfed.
Yeah, Nazari is
to me,
one of the biggest
from
waves.
Belgium, there's a seat there. The last thing you think about is surfing.
I know. Yeah, I played music on the streets in Belgium, actually, when I had 100 of these going down my back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I saw you.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably not.
It was a lot of years ago. And, Belgium, I really enjoyed Belgium, actually. There was a beautiful square, an ancient type old square where I played.
The old towns are very nice.
What's it called again? That's
Antwerp?
big square in Antwerp. What's the big square called?
In Antwerp?
I think so. Oh, no, maybe I'm thinking, what's another famous Belgium city?
You have Brussels.
The biggest, Brussels, it was Brussels.
Oh, Brussels.
The big square in Brussels, like an old square.
Is there like grass there also?
I think there might have been.
And is it where the atomium, like the big balls, like all connected to each other in the sky?
Oh, man, I don't remember.
That might be newer installation.
It's like kind of like the Sphirot, but like in the wrong order. Maybe.
Really?
We should check that out. Yeah, do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe not.
We're talking close to 40 years ago.
Wow, maybe they didn't even build it then.
Yeah. What's up? Maybe 35 years ago. But anyway, why I'm sharing about this is, what I'm sharing is that I had come to Jerusalem, started learning Torah, but at Aish Hatorah, probably similar to Chabad, like you have to immediately start reaching out. Like if you know Aleph, you have to teach Aleph. If you know Bet, you got to teach Bet. There's no like time in the oven. You just half-baked start teaching. So I was immediately put teaching because I'm in front of people. That's when I shine. And so they just put me out immediately. Like immediately I was teaching classes. And but here's the thing, it had a different effect because I was able to see into these Americans because I wasn't one. I sound like one. I was raised in that country, but I'm not American because I wasn't part of that. I was surfing 6 to 8 hours a day in the Pacific Ocean or oceans around the world. You know what 6 to 8 hours a day of surfing is? It means you don't live on land.
I tried once for an hour, and it was the worst hour of my life.
You got a lot of respect for surfers. It's the worst hour. It's the most quit sport ever.
It's very hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. So.
And I do snowboarding. It's not the same at all.
Not the same. No. You with surfing, you need two things. One is you need neuroplasticity, which only children have. And the second thing is, did you notice when you try to paddle with this arm, the board went that way? And when you try to paddle with that arm, it went that way? So you need to, your neurons have to create paths of, I'm paddling this arm, but I'm leaning kind of that way. And then I'm paddling this arm, leaning, but you don't see the leaning. It's all done, unconsciously after a while.
Muscle memory.
But you need to be a child for the neuroplasticity to surf. By the way, I'm not putting down all the surf schools. They're the cutest things ever. And I know they're on every beach now around the world, and they should continue. Because just getting people out into the ocean is a mitzvah. Just get them out there. As opposed to being in office buildings and cubicles or kids waiting for their father to take them for ice cream. Like, let them go down to the beach in the summer and do surfing. And anyway, but the other thing you need is to have nothing to do all day. Because it takes hours to learn. Hours. So you need neuroplasticity and nothing to do. Well, that sounds like a kid all summer. Mm-hmm. And then you catch it. And then next thing you know, you're buying a wetsuit for the winter. And you're in. So I was doing that. Now, if there wasn't waves, if there was no surf, because whatever, there was no storm, or I just had more energy, I would go mountain biking. And so I'm mountain biking now for over 40 years as well, downhill mountain biking.
You just, Rahman Ali-san had a bad accident on a mountain bike, no?
Yeah, but I was parked at the time. It was a freak accident.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You weren't riding? You broke your leg on a bike not riding it?
I wasn't really riding. I was sitting on it.
Wow.
I just tipped over and my leg flipped up onto the. I don't want to say this.
Get too gory. I saw the pictures. I was like, what is going on?
It was horrible. Anyway, my van's outside with my mountain bike in it for the morning. Meaning.
My father-in-law rides in the morning, Tuesday morning. So.
In Tzfat?
Yeah.
It's tomorrow, Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would want to ride with me.
Probably.
Right after Nets.
Oh, I'm not getting up for Nets. Forget that. Anyway, long story short is I wasn't one of them. And so I was able to bring back so many people because I was able to get into their kishkas.
You know what they're going through, but you see it from an outsider perspective.
Exactly.
But you know very well what they're going through.
Very well. I've been watching it my whole life. I mean, we had 50 yard lines for every game, and I'd always bring binoculars. I want to watch the people. I would like watching the Americans and seeing what's the connect, what's the disconnection between husbands and wives, kids and parents, parents to kids. And I was watching them my whole life and waiting for my moment anytime I could reach anyone and touch their heart. I'm a bridge I'm a 10-lane bridge in two directions. And I bridge people to themselves and to each other and to Hashem. I'm a bridge. That's it. That's what I do.
That's what Rav Torgerman says all the time.
He says he's a bridge?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
He made a whole entire art exhibition with the bridges. And so he has a book called The Gesher. He has a painting of
what?
Gesher.
I gotta connect them. I've been. Were we there together once? Yeah.
So he has the bridge. It's this whole entire thing.
Anyway, long story short is that it turns out that I wound up working intensely with Chassidim, like the Brooklyn style Chassidim that look like this. Yeah. Intensely with them. Why? I look just like them, so they trust me. They don't trust anybody. They trust me. I've got this Hungarian face that's like built for them. and also most Bali Tshuva look like they're cute but you can tell it's a Bali Tshuva from 100 yards away.
You can't. Yeah.
You can't with me. Okay. And so they love me, but the thing is that I have insights that they could never ever have because I'm watching them from outside. You get what I'm saying? And then when I have Israeli students, same thing. I'm not Israeli. I'm not even close to that. And so once again, the insights are there because I'm watching them for 30 years here.
So you're like an anthropologist, kind of.
Anthropologist with a heart and tools to help people. So anyway, that's how I got here. Sorry if that was long.
No, that's perfect. But
you said you grew up like secular in the secular schools. What was where did it like you were always questioning they kicked you out? Where did you eventually end up in a Jewish school?
No.
How do you end up in Aish? Like, okay, you got a free ticket.
I
But
told you that my father's business went bankrupt, and I got a free ticket.
And that was it. That was
it. I didn't when I showed up at Aish, I didn't know Aleph Bet. I didn't know. I never heard the word malacha in my life. I was, by the way, we were raised. My father was quite traditional because his father was from Europe, from before the war, and he was a Vishnitz Chassid. And
oh wow!
But we never met him. He passed away before my oldest brother Sam was born, and his name was Sam actually. And I was raised with Shabbos dinner. Like Shabbos, there was no not going to Shabbos dinner. Like my friends would be gathering, shooting pool outside. We could hear them outside these big doors of we had a mansion. I mean, there was a pool table room, a tennis court, a swimming pool, a football field.
So you're doing everything, but you're having the meal. You're making.
There was a room just for ping pong, and so we could hear them in the background, gathering and gathering, just waiting for my father to let us go already, and then he would let us go, and then we were gone. And but we grew up with that, like that was. So we had a very strong Jewish feeling. We were the most identified Jewishly than anyone. But meanwhile, we knew nothing.
It's all tradition.
Yeah, it was just tradition.
But in the neighborhood that you lived, you're saying you were like...
Yeah, there wasn't even a shul. There wasn't even a Chabad there.
And which neighborhood was this?
It's a neighborhood called Brentwood. Brentwood is the sneest Beverly Hills. There was like Beverly Hills is where you
lived there.
Obnoxious, and
where you want to show everybody. Yeah. Then there was next door. That's all bees. Then there's Bel Air, which it's kind of the Beverly Hills people who want to hide. And then there's Brentwood where we're not going to hide, but we're also not going to show.
It's real money.
Kind of like that.
Real money.
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
We have hundreds and hundreds of millions.
Right. And then next door to that is the Pacific Palisades, which is where Sunset Boulevard hits the coast. And that's also packed with Jews, but there we're going to hide that we're Jewish. And that's what they do. They hide that they're Jewish there. Yeah.
Crazy. So you get to Aish, you're starting to teach, you're doing all these things, and Hashem, clearly you got married out of there. And
yeah. My wife actually lived in Tzfat. Yeah.
Did you tell her to go to Tzfat or before?
No. She actually moved to Tzfat to get away from me. She had like this crazy crush on me. Like it was weird. Like we met at a party. I walked in the party and she was like, at that point I was 20 pounds heavier in muscle. Not an ounce of fat. 20 pounds heavier in muscle. Long hair. Like literally these coming down my back. Yeah. Tan and like I went
religious?
No. Barely. No, it's when I got to Aish Hatorah.
This is when you just
as I got there. So someone introduces me to her, and I'm really good with people, so I remembered meeting her. But he just introduced me to her. But there was a table full of beer, and I was more interested in the beer at the time. So I was like, nice to meet you. I went for the beer, went up to the roof of this place overlooking the wall, the kotel, and drank my beer. Half a year later, we were at a Malava Malka Saturday night dinner, a party, and it was at her apartment in the middle of Jerusalem, and it was her and a roommate. Her roommate invited friends, and I was tagging along, and we met there again. But she didn't know that was me because I was already short hair.
You already did
a button-down shirt with a
two dreadlocks.
Black kippah. None of these. None of these. These have to grow from the inside. And we met there. There was clearly electricity because we were talking in one of the rooms, and people were like slowly going out of that room until it was just the two of us. And I'm now a yeshiva bacher.
Yichud.
And I was like, we looked at each other and we were like, we better leave. And anyway, we want to hear a crazy thing. 3 years later, we marry. 3 years after.
Only 3 years later.
3 years later, because I was learning. I didn't know anything. I was learning. 3 years later, we marry. 3 years later, after we marry, another Shabbos guest asked us where we met. So we always say at a party. He's like, okay, that's nice. Anyway, after 3 years of being married, a guest says, what party? First time anyone asked, what party? So she goes on to describe this party 6 months after we'd met.
The one that she threw?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we didn't meet at that party. And she's like, yes, we did. And I'm like, no, we didn't. We met at 6 months earlier in the old city at a party because my roommate, who was taking you skiing the next day, said he has to tell you what time you're leaving. And I met you there. And she goes, I married you.
Wow, she didn't
I was the
recognize
guy who
until
walked
then.
through the door that that her jaw dropped. This California surfer guy.
She didn't even know.
She didn't know she married me.
3 years after.
3 years.
That's hilarious.
Says this, man. Let's go.
So she had such a crush on me in Jerusalem that she decided she has to move to Tzfat because she can't run into me again. She kept running into me. It was making her nuts. She was like OCD on me. So she decided she's going to Tzfat. So she's moving to Tzfat, but she has all this stuff that she needs to move to Jerusalem. So it turns out the day she's moving, my mother and I are coming up to Tzfat to Ascent to spend a few days in Tzfat. My mother was visiting Israel, and so my mother's like, "Yeah, this lady and this girl is moving to Tzfat." Oh no, at that point she knew I knew her. So she said, "Leia's moving to Tzfat. Let's tell her we'll take her stuff." So I took her stuff to Tzfat. She's moving away from me, and I'm the one bringing her stuff.
Kadosh Baruch Hu, whatever. In the end, you're married. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
Beautiful kids.
Thank God. Yeah, now we're making weddings and stuff. It's wedding time. A lot of fun getting the kids out.
Wait, for who you're making weddings?
For his
My
babies.
kids.
kids
Yeah,
are
we
married?
just made
Wow.
our 4th wedding, bro.
Oh, wow.
Already?
Yeah, we're on the other edge,
Oh,
I think.
Hashem.
So you guys are creating what's called a startup. We're now. This is our exit plan.
Well, in a few years, we're planning on marrying. Don't be already. 3 years. Why not make a shidduch?
Sort out the shidduch and just wait.
A few years later. Yeah.
I was visiting LA once, and all my friends came to a party, and they're all like heavy environmentalists. We were like hardcore environmentalists, and they see all my kids, and they're like, ducklings, like one after the other, after the other, after the other.
Your carbon footprint is crazy.
Yeah, it's like overpopulation, lack of resources. You know better than us. And I said to them, at that moment, a plastic bag flew across the bluffs. My parents live in the Pacific Palisades, on the cliffs. And we were sitting on the cliffs on the benches overlooking the ocean. My kids go running after a plastic bag that blew away into the bushes, way far away. It was a strong gust, blew it far away. So they're gone. And they said, overpopulation. I said to them, when you're creating more of a problem, I understand. But when you're creating the solution, you should have as many kids as you can. And just as I finished saying that, my kids come back with a plastic bag. Look, Daddy, we found the litter that blew across. And so that's what I've been doing, is creating solutions all these years. And I tell it to their teachers.
How do you do that? How do you create a child that's a solution in the world?
Well, first of all, you got to be a solution. You yourself are a solution. You got to live your life every day with a mission and a cause. Sadly, most people will work and take care of families and die, and it all dies with them. And then there's Jews who add prayer to that. So they pray in a synagogue. Maybe they study a bit. And then they have to make some kind of living, and then they go home. But when you die, you're no longer in the synagogue. You're no longer at home. And you're no longer at work. When you make the decision that the rest of my life I'm going to be a solution to this world and its problems, when you make that decision, you become someone whose life will actually get stronger in your death. You create a legacy. Your life kind of you build it and build your solution that you are to the world, and then when you die, it goes and rains down on everybody. Did you guys know that when Shlomo Carlebach was alive, there were two Carlebach shuls. It was Manhattan, the Carlebach shul, and the Moshav. No, the Moshav.
Oh.
The Carlebach shul and the Moshav. Two shuls. And now you mentioned LA because the Happy Minyan was the first Carlebach shul, but I'm not sure if that existed before he passed away. I'm not sure. Can't remember. when he passed away, Kali Bakshuls everywhere. In the most hasidic parts of Brooklyn and Williamsburg. Kali Bakshul.
Miami.
I just led Birkas HaChodesh in the Kali Bakshul of Williamsburg, like 3 weeks ago for Chodesh Adar. Full-on Kali Bakshul. I got them all dancing. We did simply. I was holding the Torah because it was the Birkas HaChodesh, so we were dancing around the shul. We made a whole Simchas Torah out of it in the Kali Bakshul. Anyway, but there has to come a time in each person's life where they decide what problem they're solving.
One specific one?
Yeah. And the cool thing about it, I created a seminar based on this. I'm running one.
This is the possible you?
No.
Different?
No, I have a parent company called Living Inspired. Living Inspired has about 7 seminars. Possible You is the flagship seminar. And that I've been running for like 21 years. That has more than 11,000 graduates now. But the new one that I'm putting out now is called The Mission, and it's finding your life's mission. What problem did you come here to solve? So it turns out, amazingly, is that deep down under it all, we all have one big complaint about the world around us since our childhood. And you have to remember what it is. It's all the seminar takes you on this journey to discover what the thing that always bothered you. You saw it at your dinner table with the family. When you went to an event, you would see it there. Or just walking down the street, you'd see it. And everyone has another thing that bothers them. I mean, if you get 100 people, so maybe there's 30
But I have a
problems.
thing that if you ask my wife or anybody that was in yeshiva with me, if I see a book upside down, I can see it from the other side of the yeshiva. I'll get up in the middle of chavruta, I'll go, I'll flip the book. But that can't be my thing in life.
Yeah, it may very well be.
It's one of the zatzis.
Why do you notice that? So you want to know what the problem is?
Go ahead, please help.
Do the right thing. You hated that people didn't do the right thing. You can't imagine someone putting a book down upside down. It's not right. At least a Torah book. No, you're not allowed to halachically.
No, I won't get up for a stam book, but if it's a Sefer Kadosh, yeah.
So so that would be if you were in the seminar right now and you just engaged with me, I would now be saying to you, go back in your mind and think through when you saw people doing the wrong thing, how'd that affect you? Some people don't give a darn. You do the wrong thing. I know people today who can see people doing things that are really wrong, as you know, like people are up to all kinds of stupid stuff. And it doesn't seem to bother them at all. It doesn't bother you. When you hear this crazy stories, what people get up to, like people living double lives, like, they're observant of one in front of us and then doing crazy stuff behind us. Does that bother you like horribly? If it bothers you horribly, that's an upside down book. He's an upside down book. I'm asking you.
Yeah, it's makes a lot of sense.
Well, no, it would really hit you between. If it's your problem, it will hit you between the eyes. So you have to think about it.
We got to think a little bit more.
But the beauty, Avidan, the beauty of having a problem that big worth solving is it makes all your other problems totally disappear.
Mm-hmm. For sure, you go to the source. You're saying
go to the big problem. Go to the big problem, and then parking tickets. It's like, but here's the thing: you can always tell someone who doesn't have a mission. You know why? Because their little problems
bother them a lot.
Yeah, they're totally magnified because life is just troubleshooting for most people who don't have a problem they're here to solve. They're just troubleshooting all the time. And you guys are clearly on a mission. Tzfat's on a mission.
That's the thing.
Tzfat's on a mission. We're part of that.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
we're with the Tzvat guys.
Exactly.
The book thing, for example, right? Because like what I say, it could be like a part of this thing, but there's so many things like this podcast, for example, like Shlichut. There's so many different things that I feel like are like a little bit higher missions than flipping a book, but it could be all connected to that same shoresh, right? Of that. Yeah, I guess doing the right thing in the world, proper representation, making sure things are shown properly, or placed properly, or presented properly, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting there. Hashem.
Yeah. Yeah, part of the problem of finding your mission is you're so busy dealing with all your little problems, you never The last thing you're looking for is a big one. You're trying to get rid of problems.
A lot of people also avoid these
That's kind of
things.
the thing, right? When you're busy with the big thing, everything else goes away, right?
Yeah, with two ways. One is, it's like the famous story of the guy who brought animals into the house. You know, the Rebbe told him to bring animals into the house because he said his house was too small. You know that story?
I've heard. I think
You know,
it sounds
he says,
familiar.
bring in a cow. So he's like, the Rebbe said, bring in a cow. He brings in a cow. Bring in the chickens. So they bring the chicken. Anyway, he finally goes to the Rebbe, I can't take it, you know. I got my whole farm in the house. The Rebbe says, take them out. He takes them all out, and he goes back to his Rebbe, and he says, I have such a big house.
Whatever the story. That's a good one.
So that's one thing that happens is your small problems become just nothing, you know. The truth is you can hire someone to do them, because if you really have a mission, you'll, you know,
Invest in it.
knowing you with your Yiddish cup, you'll figure out a way to monetize it. So you can already pay people to deal with your small problems, you know. And the
Jews like to outsource.
yeah.
If it's one thing we like to do.
I've been outsourcing my life for like so long now. It's crazy, but it's a lot of fun, you know, because if you really want to live your life fully adventurous, like full adventure,
You can be doing every little thing.
hire somebody to do all the other stuff, and then you get to just be on your adventure the whole time, because you
Start a business to support your whatever you do.
well, you monetize the ideal. You monetize your mission.
Make that your business.
Yeah, monetize your mission, and then you hire people for all the small stuff.
Exactly.
Start the show.
There's another thing that you can do also is, another thing that happens when you have a mission is you get what's called siyata d'shmaya. Because God's
Heavenly
like,
help.
you get heavenly help, because God's like, hey, he's on point, man. This is my point man. He's making all the baskets on the world's problems. So like,
He needs help.
yeah, so let's just kind of have when they're going for the parking ticket, the parking lady all of a sudden gets a phone call because you had to run into some building for the mission, and you just didn't have time to pay, or you didn't have time to find parking or whatever, and there was just loading zone or whatever. And she gets a call from her mother right when she gets to your car. You're like, oh, Mom. She walks by your car. Okay, I'm at work. I got to call you later. Click. And then she gives the ticket to the car in front of you and keeps going.
And that's Eliyahu's car.
It's
But I'm
probably
good.
happened. This is what you've been dealing now with for years, and in a generation now. We mentioned in America, we touched on America, but I think it's also, you know, we definitely have the same problem here in Israel. The problem of like trying to run away from this, trying to, you know, definitely our generation
Run away from?
from focusing on this tachlit, from the possible you, from all these, you know, like there are people that try to do these things, but in the day to day, I think people are looking for those distractions, are trying to avoid, you know, maybe tapping into that tachlit.
Shortcuts maybe also.
You mean to get to the purpose of it all?
People sometimes, yeah, like
I wasn't sure the subject you're on right now. You're talking about getting to the purpose of life. You mean?
I'm saying there's people that avoid it. There's people, you know.
So people that know their mission, you mean?
No, that they know that they have this awakening. They know that they have this calling, and they're trying to subdue. They're trying to numb it. They're trying to shut.
You know what
pacify
the
it.
famous story of Tanakh is about that?
No. Oh, Yov.
No.
Yonah.
Yonah, yeah.
Yonah.
Oh, yeah.
Yonah's on a
Running
mission.
away.
He's been given a mission from God. He's on a mission from God. And he goes to sleep at the bottom of a boat. First of all, he takes a boat to another place. He doesn't go to Nineveh. He goes to the wrong place. Tarshish. I'm sure we could figure out something about the word Tarshish, like why that's where he had to go. And but in the boat's like in the storm, they find him sleeping. Because maybe that's telling us, like, if you want your life to be a storm, you know, run away from your task, run away from your tafkid, your mission. You know, that'll make a storm.
Wow, yeah.
Also, when you have a mission, your wife rallies for you. Or if she has a mission, you'll rally for her. Meaning, when you know, you feel it. It's bigger than us. It's larger than your life. Think about it.
Tzipora and Moshe, and she also.
Yeah. So when it's larger than you, she likes that. Women love when we're humble. They love when we're humble. They just love it. women are very attracted
Confident.
to,
and-
Takes a
very
real man to be humble, right?
Yeah, no, but no, they what attracts them is the respect due to a man who goes out and faces his dragons and makes a living and hits the study hall. And I mean, he's facing the dragons out there, and then he comes home daily with the daily bread, and she can't not respect that, and she can't help but be attracted, because respect and attraction always go together in marriage. For the woman towards the man, respect and attraction, it's immediate. Yeah, that's why we're having an epidemic right now. Women are like throwing their husbands out, like they're dropping their husbands like flies, because how do you respect a man in tight pants and knickers, and pink socks, who's got like there's no man left in him, and the women they think it's cute. They're actually dressing him when they're in their 20s, but once she hits 35, man, she's smelling for a man, because at 35 up, a woman's femininity comes in like a rush, and it's like she's on fire now till she's like in her early 50s, just wild femininity, and well, once that femininity kicks in, so then
You need the masculinity.
she's smelling for a male. She was hoping it'd be her husband, but it's too late for that. He's been. Ask the average man. Like you grew up in Belgium. You grew up not observant. You grew up like me.
I grew up observant.
Oh, you grew up.
Modern Orthodox.
Oh, you did. Okay. So had you been raised secular, and I asked you, and I can't ask you either, but here's the crazy thing: if you ask someone raised secular, how many male teachers they had growing up, the answer is like
4 or 5.
No, 1, 2, or none. I've had many men tell me they had none. Now, who else did they have to impress besides their female teachers all day?
Sisters.
They had their, sisters, yeah. But they had their mother, because their father was in some cubicle, in some building somewhere, being, not exactly mentoring his son in some building. And so you learn to please women. At the time that women were empowered, and by the way, power is exactly what the left's trying to tear down right now. Well, of course, giving power. We're not going to get into politics, but power isn't the goal. Competence is the goal. Competence to be good at something. Now, do you get powerful if you're the best surgeon? Yeah, you kind of run the hospital after a while. Power comes with competence, but power is never the goal. And I'm kind of segueing a bit right now into a whole deep, whole deep world, really. But men raised in a world of powerful women who from the youngest ages were pleasing them. There's not a lot of man left by the time the woman turns woman, which is in their mid-30s. And how did we get on this to begin with? What was the thread that got us on this?
Avoiding the problems, running away from this.
Yeah. So when a man does have a problem that he's here to solve, when he is that solution, so now he's like larger than life, because now he's humbled himself into a role of service, because he's now serving something bigger than him. When you're there to solve something, the thing you're there to solve is bigger than you. Parking tickets are smaller than you. World problems that you're going to do your best at are bigger than you. And for a woman to see her man humble himself to a cause that the world needs, she rallies for him. And she likes to see him play that role, because on the one hand, it's powerful that he's doing this. I shouldn't
get some respect. He gets everything she wants in the husband.
But he's also nullified himself to something much bigger than him, which is God in the end. And God's the one we're all humbling before, whether we do it alive or whether we're going to have to do it on our deathbed. But we're all humbling before him. That's one great rabbi said that his whole life is practice for his death. He He's getting ready by humbling himself throughout the years so that when it's finally the most humble moment of your life where everything will get ripped out from under you, that you're ready for that. And it's scary how not ready people are for it. It's a $1 billion industry of plastic surgery, tightening their cheeks, puffing up their lips. They're like
houses everywhere,
sportier cars. It's like anything not to come to terms with this ultimate reality.
Whereas Chazal tell us all the time that we have to think about this. We have to. Obviously, you don't focus on it all day long, but you have to constantly, at least every day, contemplate that one day, this is not going to be, I'm here for a purpose. It's not the Ikar. This world.
Sure. And you can actually see yourself as the living dead. Because think about it. Like, you guys are conscious right now? You guys are conscious of us being here? We're all three conscious. But what is that consciousness? That consciousness is a thin micrometer membrane on the outer edge of this spirit thing called the nefesh. That's your consciousness. The conscious being that you are, that that atheists can't seem to explain, and the brain scientists can't seem to find. That consciousness is the outer thinnest membrane of
physical membrane.
No.
Mashal. Okay.
No, not even. It's not. It can't be found in a brain. It's not in MRIs. It's the thinnest membrane of something called the nefesh. But the nefesh is this gigantic thing that goes up worlds, an entire realm called Asiya. And this is the very bottom. We're in the bottom of Asiya. If you can hear this table, you're at the very bottom. If you can touch something, you're at the bottom of Asiya. But to get to the level of being able to touch something, it must be multiple levels in Asiya to get to the bottom of Asiya. So that nefesh climbs all those worlds. And just like this table is the outer membrane of the bottom of Asiya, the consciousness of man is the outer membrane of the nefesh. But imagine that nefesh is part of something much bigger, which is called the ruach, which is connected to something much bigger called the neshama, which is connected to something like infinitely bigger called the chaya, which is connected to something that's like that your brain would just go all over the walls, is the yechida, lashon yachad, like where we all are sourced, including everything around us is all sourced in yechida, and so you're 99.9999999% dead, and that. And 0.0000001% of you is the part that's the thin membrane that you're listening to me with. You understand? You're mostly dead. You're already dead.
I'm wondering what it's like to be alive now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a high five. I'm wondering what it's like to be alive. Right. So you're
ties into Purim.
You're already dead. Yeah. How's it slide into Purim?
Because in the end of the day, we were all dead. We were all it was like zera. We were all dead, and that little pintala yid inside of Lech Knos Kol HaYudim said without food, without anything, and then boom, you're taking over everything.
The paragraph in the second paragraph of the meditation that we do of Shmoneh Esrei is Machaya Mesim. But think about those words now. See, if you look in art scrolls, say like resurrection of the dead. Machaya Mesim, gives life to the dead. Think about it now.
It's like Pokeh Chivrim is not really for the blind people.
Exactly. So he's Machaya Mesim means that he's giving life to all of the neshumas, all the souls in the soul world, including us. We're the Mesim too. We're all...
Because we're also Gilgulim.
But he's Machaya that thing. So I thought about it in a whole paragraph that's based on the giving life to the dead. That what is this? Somech Noflim, Ra'ifei Chalim, Matir Asurim. You know what I was thinking about that? So fallen ones, sick ones, and people imprisoned What is it? What do they all have in common? People are falling, meaning they're having wipe. I'm a biker. They're wiping out. They're having wipeouts, whether in business or their marriages or whatever they're going through. They're in wipeout mode, or they're depressed, and that's a wipeout. That's the worst wipeout. So, fallen ones, sick people who are sick, and people who are incarcerated,
bound or whatever.
Bound in any way, tied up. Like they are the least likely to sense their spirit. Yeah, you ever been really sick? Did you catch that virus that hit Israel this year? I mean, it hit America too, but did you guys get that virus? Not the corona one, the virus one. You don't even remember?
We got a bunch of things.
We got a bunch of things.
Every week they come out with a new strain. It's like marijuana.
Spot in the winter is like you get sick a couple times.
Yeah. So what is this idea? Now we're going into Purim, and one of the mitzvahs of Purim is to get to Ad Lo Yada, into this place of I don't know anything until I have no consciousness. What is this now, and how do we tap into that work?
So there's two big. Every time you do a mitzvah, you get like there's a download that God gives. Tefillin is a certain download. You know, Shabbos is a major download. So Purim's a big download, and God's got a download for us. It's a gift He's going to give us. At each holiday, we're going to pick something up, pick up a major download. So there's two holidays whose download has to happen while you're unconscious.
Purim.
One is Purim, right? Because we have the mitzvah to get intoxicated till we are no longer, really aware of much at all. And the other?
Pesach, 4 cups.
Yeah,
Sukkot, maybe?
what?
Why? You leave everything you know. You're outside, yeah. Oh, sleeping, the mitzvah to sleep inside the sukkah.
Yeah, so that it's brought down that sleeping in the sukkah is the download.
Oh, that's when you're receiving the mochin of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or the shefa of
Comes
sukkah.
while you're sleeping.
So Chabadnikim are missing out on this download?
Yeah, when you're, that
We get
really,
it download on a
that really
different
shocked
period.
me because that's like a heavy Kabbalistic thing, and Chabad's known as the deepest Kabbalah of it all. I think
So
it
they
probably
must
was
know
because a
something you
Rebbe.
don't, maybe.
I think a Rebbe didn't sleep in a sukkah. Maybe that's why.
Oh,
He wasn't able to, Rov Kedusha, he couldn't sleep in the sukkah. That's
And then that was it.
Rabbi
the
Rashab, no?
Frierdiker Rebbe didn't sleep in a sukkah.
Yeah.
Why? But you know why?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because he literally can't sleep with this Kedusha.
Okay, but that's the Rebbe.
Exactly.
Why the Chassidim not sleeping the same?
So the Rebbe didn't do it either. And he said whoever is connected to the Rebbe doesn't do it either.
Wow.
Yeah. It's about
Okay.
a very strong connection to the Rebbe.
Okay, fine.
That's what the Rebbe said.
But anyway, whatever. That's one, but the other is Purim, and Purim's download is when you're unconscious. So how can you ask me about what is the download? But we can discuss the download. So what is the download when you're unconscious that you're getting when you're unconscious? By the way, that's how do we know this also is because there's a halacha that if someone can't drink alcohol,
Should go to
he
sleep.
can go to sleep. Why?
Connection to Sukkot.
It's
not
ad lo yada. Now he's out. And because he's out of das, so poskim say that's the fulfillment of if you get unconscious now you can get your download, in. So
Wow.
It makes kind of sense because in Har Sinai, before we got to Torah, went to sleep. And now in Purim, it's very connected. Again, we go to sleep.
right. Mm-hmm. So what is that download on Purim? The download is as follows. The download is that all is one. Because if you look at the whole halacha, it says, Chayvin ish libesumim bepuria, ad lo yada, bein arul haman bevorach Mordechai. Till you no longer know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai.
So you can do the gematria and also be Yotze, no?
Right?
If you can't do the math anymore, you're Yotze.
Those two words, Arul Haman and Baruch Mordechai, which have the same they equal the same amount. You know how much they equal, by the way? I happen to know. You know what it is? 502. 502. You know how I know that?
Ben.
502 is the drunk driving code of California.
What does it mean? You're drunk, you call 502 and someone drives you?
No. If someone gets
On
busted,
the cops,
police.
the police.
yeah, the list of
okay.
things.
Say, this
That's
is a
called a
502.
502.
Baruch Mordechai, no.
Yeah, so
We got a Harman Mordechai over here.
you know, I was there once for Purim. I was so disappointed. No offense to the Jewish community there, but
We're in Los Angeles.
yeah, they just didn't know
How to do it.
how to do it. Yeah,
How to party. They don't know how to party.
They didn't
Not
know.
the right way.
Not that much. And anyway, so I said to the people I was with, I was like, listen, you know, this is getting a little, I don't want to be the only one partying this hard. And I need somewhere to party. And you guys clearly aren't partying as hard as I am. So I thought to myself, where can I find people partying? And I said, is there an Irish pub? And they're like, there is an Irish pub.
Patrick's Day?
It wasn't St. Patrick's Day.
Sometimes a lot.
That's when that's their Purim, you know. Anyway, so they took me to an Irish pub. These guys were drinking.
They know how to party.
I stayed with them, and my friends were like, "Okay, we drank. Can we leave now?" And I'm like, "Leave me here. Leave me here." I had these guys in my tzitzis and my kippah. I was wearing one of their hats. They left. My friends left me in the Irish pub. I was with a bunch of Irishmen, but I'm not giving up on Purim. So I had Purim with these Irishmen, and just amazing thing is Purim Day. We woke up. Oh, it was sunrise. We were still up. Purim Day, we were still up. The paper arrives, the LA Times, and it's a picture of a giant swastika made of. Now, not everyone knows the connection of the Purim and the Holocaust, but whatever.
No.
But we know. Yeah. So a
We
giant.
actually had a podcast about it.
Oh, cool. Okay. A giant swastika on the cover of the LA Times, this big a picture. And guess what it's made of? Pine trees. And guess how big it is? Like a quarter of a mile.
Well, that's weird.
They found it in the forests of Vienna. Vienna. Vienna's a city? No. Austria.
Yeah.
The forest of
Vienna is the
Austria.
city, yeah.
Outside Vienna. In the forest of Austria, they found this. And it shows up in the LA Times.
On for.
That'd be cool to Google that, because if it was on the LA Times, it'd be easy to Google. Yeah. So, isn't that a trip? And I just that night, the guy who did stay up and keep partying with me, he stayed up all night with me partying. I explained to him the whole Purim connection with the Nuremberg trials.
Oh, that's a trip.
And that and
The more he gets the paper.
while he's listening to me describe, you know, how the names of the number of the Nuremberg men hung in Nuremberg in 1946
It all matches up with the
with the date of the sons of Haman's children who were hung, the 10 sons. It blew his mind, and then the paper like flies up and hits the door, and I show the paper on Purim Day. So.
Did anyone ever try to dress up as Imach Shemo for Purim? Or is that a no-no? Is that too early?
Yeah, that's a no-no.
Minhag
people-
Bechal is to
no,
dress
but-
up as tzaddikim, no? Mordechai and Esther. And...
No, but it's interesting because people dress up as Pharaoh, as Haman, and these were not lesser bad people in a way.
You want to hear the ultimate
I'm just
story?
thinking out loud.
There's a guy buried here in the Tzfat Cemetery. Another one.
Oh yeah, I've
another
heard
one of
about
my
this guy.
students.
He's quite famous, no?
Which one?
Are we talking about the same one?
No.
Different?
He's not in that spot cemetery. He's talking
Oh
about.
no, not the Tzfat Cemetery. No.
Torah Aish.
Somewhere else
Avdil.
nearby.
He's close by.
I don't know this. Anyway, this guy is a student of mine from like more than 20 years ago. I don't know.
Oh wow.
And he's buried here. So he was a real stormy soul, like super stormy soul. Stormy souls do well in Tzfat.
Yeah.
And he was doing fine in Tzfat. Tzfat was good for him. Except when he drank. If he drank, he would become a dog and start biting people, which put people in the hospital and put him behind bars more than once. But as long as he didn't drink, he would not become a dog. And he was very spiritual. He was one of the high people at Tzfat. Anyway, I've had students over the years.
Did he recently pass?
No, years ago. Yeah, I have students who they're only sane in Tzfat.
Can imagine.
You got lucky, bro.
Like-
You married one.
The only place to hold this Kabbalah is one of the places is Tzfat, right?
Yeah. It's all connects. Why? See, people who don't understand Stormy Souls. I have a class online called Stormy Souls, and on YouTube, and the people who don't understand Stormy Souls, they keep them away from Tzfat. Give them some really straight community rabbi to guide him. Bad idea. Bad idea. The worst crash and burn case I've ever seen was community rabbis dealing with Stormy Souls.
So you're saying for some people Tzfat is actually not good?
For some people, no, it's very good. For the crazier the guys, the better.
No, but I'm saying for, let's say, the very straightforward people, they're like very logical thinkers. You see,
practical.
Very practical. You feel like I'm not sure they will fit in Tzfat. What do you think about those?
Those guys. Yeah, they don't do so hot here.
Where would be a good place for them?
Yerushalayim.
Yeah, Yerushalayim. Anyway, so listen to this crazy story. So it's Purim, and his name's Yoshua Abrams. So Yoshua is working very hard on a costume. I don't know what he's doing, but he's excited about it. So he shows up at my house, and he's dressed as an Arab. So he's got a full head, a keffiyeh with the band around, and he's got a jalabiyah on. That's the one they wear. It's the white one. It's kind of like a jumpsuit type thing with short sleeves. It's like a dress. And then he had a beautiful robe on over that, and he carved a big stick and carved like Hashem's names into it and stuff. And he really prepared for Purim.
The permissible names, I assume.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, he's at our Purim party, which is totally off the Richter every year. We have this crazy Purim party. We moved it to night now, so it's what I mean by that is we wash at noon, we wash right after mincha and do it.
Oh, it starts in the day.
Starts in the day, but everyone arrives at my house at midnight, and then the party goes till like 3. So, meaning what happens is people Litvaks, you know what Litvaks are?
Yes.
So Litvaks bench at before Shkia, so they can do Mariv on time, obviously, and then there's Chassidim don't bench; they keep partying, but they usually wind up in the shuls and partying in shuls, and there's bands playing in shuls. But when they finally bench, my party starts. That's when our party starts, and it's a really nice party. This year it's going to hit Shabbos in Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
So we do same thing. We bench at midnight. But
it's in Yerushalayim, you're saying.
Yeah, we bench at midnight, and then we.
The Rav has the best Sukkot parties and Purim parties.
Oh, we should talk about the Sukkot parties. But
Have you been?
I've been to the Sukkot parties. Yes, I have.
I saw, I think, a video of you in a sukkah, and you were like really having a good time. It was really awesome. I think you might have showed me.
I don't know. It could be.
So let me just finish your show story. So he comes. So now we're on our way to Pinsk Karlin because it's time to hit the shuls. It's 7 p.m. or whatever. We get to Pinsk, and it's the previous Pinsker Rebbe Zatzal, and he's an old man. His face is like right above the table. He's like crouched over it, and all the Chassidim in there, big band, and it's a whole scene, and it's a whole scene. And so I'm up on the bleachers just dancing next to my brother Aaron, who's a Breslov rabbi in Yerushalayim. He's the vice president of Chase Bank in Beverly Hills. Full-on Breslover. Teaches Likutei Moharan every day across from the bank in the montage. And anyway, so we're dancing the whole time, and my brother starts tapping me that Yoshua is trying to get close to the Rebbe. It turns out in Yoshua's mind, he was going to have a peace process with the Rebbe because he's Arab. He's out there right now. He's been partying for like 7 hours, and it was.
He's convinced he's now.
I have a feeling it was more than just alcohol at this party. So he's out there, and he's going to have a peace process with the Pinsk Karlin Rebbe in Mea Shearim because he's the Arab. Now
that sounds amazing.
On such a drunken day with this elderly Rebbe, the Rebbe's highly guarded. Mm-hmm. He's not. This isn't like. Questions and answers with the Rebbe day. It's like, leave the Rebbe alone. He's got guards all over him, taking care of him. So they keep pushing him away and pushing him in, and then he sneaks around the other way, and he pushes him away. Finally, my brother says to me, he taps me and he says, look over there. We see Yoshua at the very other end of the tish. And he goes under the tish. He's crawling under the Rebbe Tish's table in Yiddish. He's crawling under the Rebbe's table all the way. And so we're just waiting for him to pop up. And he pops up right next to the Rebbe.
Oh no!
Right next to him. He's on like 1 foot and one knee.
That's hilarious.
His face is right above the table. The gabayim, the guards, just pick him up and carry him out. He's not small, and just take him out of the shul and just throw him out of the shul. That's it for Yoshua.
No peace was made.
We're still, and
I was expecting it to happen now.
by the way, the whole time I'm dancing, people keep pulling my leg, my pant leg, between the bleachers, and I look down, and I'm like, what? And they're like, is that your student? I'm like,
No.
yeah, I'm not taking responsibility for him acting like an idiot.
He's from the eastern side of the city.
I don't know that guy. Yeah, he's from East Jerusalem. Anyway, so check this out. Like 15 minutes later, the band's playing, everyone's dancing. My brother taps me again and points. I look over. He's back at that end of the table.
Again?
He gets on the table
Oh no.
with his giant staff and just starts walking towards the Rebbe full force. So now all these drunk Hasidim see an Arab guy with a giant pointed stick.
Marching towards the Rebbe.
Marching towards the Rebbe, with his little face, in his 80s. Next thing you know, all the guards and several other Hasidim jump onto the table to get him off that table. And he's big. And he starts swinging and it was like a cartoon where you see all the moving and once in a while you hear like pow and there's like it says POW, like pow.
Pow, yeah.
Effects even.
Yeah, that was the pow. Pow. And I mean, it was bad, and he's just like twirling them off of him, and where are they going? They're flying onto the elderly, the whole table's the elderly at the table. Not to mention 50 bottles of wine, which are now gone. They're all over the elderly. So the wine's all over the elderly. The guards are all over the elderly, and in the end, his stick's broken in 20 pieces. His clothes are gone. And all that's left is this white jalabia, the white thing that he wear under. His white jalabia is wrapped around his neck. The last guy he threw off, he slipped and lands on his bum. And he's just in his tighty whities with a little white thing around his neck from the jalabia that got pulled up over all this. And there he is. The band stopped and it's silent. It was one of the greatest moments in my life. This moment, and of course someone's pulling on my leg. Is that your student? Everyone knows these are my students. Like you can't pretend they're not. And I'm just like, never seen the guy. So anyway, he gets up, he pulls his jalabia down. Now he's no kippah, no stick, no nothing, and he just starts walking towards the Rebbe. The guards regather themselves, and the Rebbe goes like this to the guards. And he keeps walking. He goes down on one knee at the end of the tish, puts out his hand. The Rebbe shakes his hand. The music starts. And everyone goes, yeah. Since I mentioned he's buried in the Svat cemetery, I just got to tell you how he died. So, I'm not going to say the circumstance of his death. It's not necessary. But he died. He died while visiting his mother to say goodbye to her on her deathbed. They both died that night. Really weird. And his sister was a student of mine, and she calls me the next morning. She says, yeah, I knew that the mother was dying. Yoshua called me to tell me that he was flying to say goodbye to his mother. And the sister calls me the next morning, and she's like, my mother passed. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And she said, so did Yoshua. I'm like, what? It was a freak thing that had nothing to do with anything. It was just a crazy situation. He wasn't suicidal at all. This was he was on meds to keep him normal, and he wasn't able to sleep over his mother for a few nights. And so the first night he took 2 sleeping pills. You're not supposed to take 2, you're supposed to take 1. He took 2 sleeping pills, didn't sleep. Next night, 2, didn't sleep. Third night he took 3 and didn't wake up. Yeah, it was some kind of mixture with his meds. Wow. Yeah. You're not supposed to take any more than 1. If you're not
He
sleeping.
wasn't mizzy. It's not like he's not trying to do.
No,
this.
this guy was.
No,
he wasn't even.
already on meds, and then he
he
took
wasn't-
too
Just
much
trying to
sleep.
sleep,
The
yeah.
mixture is
Yeah,
not
and
good.
he was never even. All the years I know him, he was never even remotely suicidal. That never was part of the plan. So
Crazy.
anyway, so listen to this. So he's gonna be buried in Sfad. He's buried in Sfad. Now his airplane was bringing his body over, while my airplane was flying me to give talks in America. So I had to miss the funeral. I couldn't say no. It was like a huge like Shabbaton. It was like, there was no way I wasn't showing up for a Shabbaton. So I would go to his grave another time.
Wow.
Anyway, long story short, here's the crazy part. You ready for this? This is gonna freak you out.
Nothing was crazy until now.
Yeah. This is where it really gets crazy. You ready for this?
No,
So-
probably not.
So check this out. I used to host a lot of people's shal shudas. Third meal was packed in my house for years and years and years. And it's like 10 minutes before it says, before 3 stars are out. And my wife says there's a lady at the door with a dog. Did I mention that Yoshua, when he drank, became a dog?
Yes.
Okay, so there's about maybe 9 months after his death. There's a lady at the door with a dog. I'm like, yeah, what do you want? Tell her to leave the dog outside and come in. She says, no, the dog got hit by a car. She says it looked like it was coming to our house. And it went shooting across the street, straight into a car. And this lady, and not a Jewish lady, she was like 6 foot Scandinavian looking lady. And I go to the door and she's holding this dog. And I look at the dog and I'm like, yee, what kind of dog is that? It had no hair. It was skin. And at the belly of the dog was a round patch of hair.
Strange.
And it's dying in her arms. So she says, listen, I just need to call the Animal Society, to come pick up this dog and put it to sleep because it's really suffering. And I said, listen, we're not going to break Shabbos for a dog, but the good news is we can make a call in like probably 8.5 minutes, Just sit outside. She could sit outside, give her a place to sit outside, sit with the dog. 8 minutes, we call the Animal Society. They'll come take the dog and put it to sleep, or put it to sleep, whatever. And so she sits there. We go to pray. And by the time I was back home from prayer, they had already come and taken the dog. So late Saturday night, that night, I go to a bar mitzvah of one of my wife's friends, and one of her friends' kids. And I'm sitting in the parking lot, which is what men do, when they're waiting for their wife at a simcha. And I'm sitting in the parking lot. And all of a sudden, another man sitting in the parking lot comes running up to my window, a guy named A.Y. Katzoff, who has now is a beautiful vineyard in Aish Kodesh, and he's got a Settler's Cellar is his wine. Amazing wine. Still hasn't hit stores because everyone buys it before it can get to the stores. Anyway, he comes up to my door. At that point, he was a shepherd on the Mount of Olives with a bunch of sheep and like farming land and stuff. He was a really amazing guy, A.Y. Katzoff. So A.Y. comes running up to me. He says, Yom Tov, I can't believe you're here. I'm like, why? He says, well, you and I are the only 2 people that Yoshua were in contact with, meaning who were willing to still deal with him. He used to sleep on Mount of Olives by A.Y. and he would visit with me during the day. We're the only 2 people he would be in touch with. And this Shabbos day, I had this crazy dream that Yoshua came to me as a dog. And he's all skin with a little patch of hair right there. And he's begging me to find him and kill him so he can go up to the soul world.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
He's
weird.
begging me to find him in Jerusalem and kill him.
Wow.
And he doesn't know you heard it.
But there's even
And you're like, I have news.
yeah, when I
I have some news
yeah,
for you.
he's dead.
I buried him.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
This is another kind of weird part, but it's very short, is that his
Yeah.
wife woke him up from the dream. And when he wakes up, she says, what is the meaning of this? And she shows him a Bank of America statement with Yoshua's signature on it. And she says, this was on our Shabbos table, which they'd already cleaned off for the last 9 months straight. Every Shabbos, every
Wait,
meal.
what is this?
It was a bank statement, a signed thing. They had sent Yoshua when Yoshua went to America, they sent money for him to deposit in their Bank of America account. But when you deposit, you have to sign. So she found a petek, a receipt of that deposit with Yoshua's signature on their Shabbos table.
From years before that.
From like that year, but more than 9 months earlier. And because he was alive at the time. Yeah. Maybe it was even that trip, I don't know. And she was shaking him to wake him up, saying, "What is this? How did this get to our dining room table on Shabbos?"
While he's dreaming of him. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's already, I don't know. I don't understand any of it.
No.
That's it. There's nothing. It's all Hashem. It's all... Wow.
Anyway, so Purim is... So Purim is getting to the level where all is one. That's the secret. Well, you can't get to all is one if you're in your das, meaning if you're in your regular woken mindset. Your whole job, your brain's whole job is distinguishing things. This book, Gate of Trust, is not this book, Lessons in HaMamarim. They're separate. And our brains do that work for us. They separate things, but we're talking about oneness. And Purim's oneness. And that's why the fish, are going 2 different directions, which is our version of the Aleph, which is one. Which is also the Eastern traditions have the yin yang, which is just the fish. Think about what a yin yang looks like.
It's an Aleph. Yeah.
It's an Aleph, and it's 2 fish
Yeah.
with their eyes going in different directions. The Pisces, which this month represents oneness. That everything is one. And that's, you can't truly get to the absolute oneness, which means to the disintegration of distinction. Where things are not distinct from one another. That is really what it's all about. That's what Purim's all about, is to get to the oneness beyond the distinctions that the mind draws. And which is really where Adam and Eve were before the sin. Because what was it? It was the sin. It was the Eitz Hadas Tov L'Ra. It was the fruit. It was the tree of distinction of good and evil. So you have to drink so much that you can't tell the difference between the villain and the hero, because they're all one.
It's all Hashem.
Yeah, Haman did one. King Achashverosh, putting that ring on Haman's finger to make the genocide decree, did more for the Jewish people in their closeness to God than
nearly any other event ever.
Yeah, than anything that all the prophets in the world couldn't do for the Jews to get them close to God. That one move got us close to God. And Mordechai, being such a horrible diplomat, he doesn't know when to bow.
And stubborn.
And
risking all of our lives.
Yeah, he was. How do we know he's not the villain? And that's a serious topic in Judaism. Is when is it time to be zealous and when is it the wrong time? So like Mordechai is he is the binyan of the paradigm of or the archetype of when to be the rabble rouser, when to be the zealous, overzealous rebel. And I think maybe the paradigm of when not to be was the people who burned all the food in Jerusalem.
The Biryonim.
That got everyone starving to death so that
they would fight. Yeah, it's not the right.
Which
time.
Ended in total disaster. Yeah. Anyway, but that's Purim is that getting to that place. Now it's interesting getting to that place because there's it just says to hayavinish levusumi. It says you're supposed to get besumi. Well, what's besumi? Fragrance. Like you're supposed to get so spiced up that you can't tell the difference. So we do wine. Why? Because wine is yud yud nun, which is 70, which is the same numerical value of sod, which is secret. Wine and secret are the same numerical value. So they both equal the same thing, wine and secret. And what's the secret? The secret is that all is one. So how does wine get you to all is one? Well, think about it. Can you drive when you're drunk? You can't distinguish. You're just not able to make good decisions. And so the more you drink, the less you're able to distinguish things. Mm-hmm. And so it's really a very perfect thing for that. A lot of people think the perfect thing is You know, I don't know what it's like in Sfat, but there's certainly a lot of smell of cannabis in Jerusalem. You know, people think like, that'll get me, you know, that'll get me there. But that's a question, you know. Maybe with the alcohol it would, but on its own, it may do the opposite. It may actually make you, well, it has a different effect on everybody, but it may actually cause you greater distinctions. Like some people have their biggest insights, for example. What is an insight? An insight's where you had two things blurred. So you thought it was one subject, and now you separated them. Just you created a distinction, and now you're getting some huge insight. Well, many people had that happen. So it doesn't seem like that's really
There's harder drugs.
the right thing. Well, yeah, there's opiates. I don't know what opiates are going to do for anyone on Purim, but you do get
Put you to sleep.
Yeah, we often get hurt on Purim. So, I mean, all the wildness, who doesn't come out of Purim all bashed and bruised? You know,
I remember the first Purim in Sfat. I didn't know what I was seeing. Rabbis on the tables, rolling everywhere, bottles flying in the air.
Welcome, guys.
I was just in the corner filming everything like, what? I have to show my friends this. This is how you should party. It was really great.
It's so cute how the Jewish people meaning Jewish people who are observant, out party everyone.
Yeah.
In Tmimut, with such purity, such purity.
Yeah. Because God said so. Which brings us to the Sukkah Parties. Because those Sukkah Parties, which, my family, my children were very much a big part of because it was a major production. We're talking
bands, musicians.
Yeah, it's $10,000 week in my sukkah. It seats 100 people, a live band every night, 2 kegs of beer, of craft beer, plus every other thing you could ever want to drink, and huge meals. We built a whole kitchen for it. I don't know if you ever saw my kitchen. It's amazing. So we built
Most people
this.
have a Pesach kitchen if they're lucky. You have a Sukkot kitchen. That's another level.
It's our kitchen, but it's got multiple stations, so all the people come to help us make this event can just be at stations chopping away and grilling and doing whatever's got to get done. So people would come up to me during these parties and they'd just be like, dude, like it was one thing on Sunday night, but this is already like Wednesday night and you're still going like this. And Shabbos is even more beautiful and big. And the people are like, people think Chol Hamoed's the only fun nights. Our best nights were like Shabbos and Yom Tov and stuff. Like those are great nights.
No instruments.
No instruments, packed like beyond capacity. And we remember one year I'm sitting here, I got Nissim Black next to me, his manager Yosef Brown next to him. On this side of me is who's that famous guy from Muncie everyone loves so much?
Lipa?
No, Barry Weber. Barry Weber, yeah. Barry Weber is on my left. Next to him is who's that great guy? Lives in Manhattan. Eli Schwabel. Eli Schwabel is next to him, and it's just like, and we had Alex Clare there.
Alex Clare, the neighbor, the Halligan neighbor.
Yeah. I'm sure there was some Roselles in there as well.
Yeah.
And that was a Leil Shabbos, like over the top. Anyway, so someone came up to me and they're like, "What is up with these parties, man?" And they get bigger each night because you get invited to other parties.
Word of mouth.
You're like, yeah, we'll go to Yom Tov Sunday night, and then we're going to go to Rabbi this, Rabbi that. Yeah, what happens? And after about an hour of Rabbi whoever, you're like, I'm going back to the party, You're like, okay, that was cool, but we'll go bench at Yom Tov's. So anyway, so I said to them that God saw my parties when I lived in L.A. He saw those parties.
He saw the potential.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
Maybe that's how I became observant.
There
good,
you
it's
go.
back.
The light turns on.
Maybe that's how I became observant. Is God's like, this guy throws good parties.
Everyone has that one tikkun,
We
Can I have a little of your whiskey, please?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just a little bit. Thank you. I just want to share some germs in honor of
As
Corona.
the Balatanya says, no, the Mittler Rebbe, you shouldn't worry about the germs of another Jew.
By the way, I know maybe It was a dumb question, but do you dress up on Purim?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I do. Just to finish the question, and then we'll go to Purim, that point was that when I wasn't commanded to party, I was throwing giant parties. The police had to stop traffic on Sunset Boulevard just to get the cars out from our street, because it was like exclusive street. The traffic light's not long enough for that many cars to come out. So no one can leave the party. So, because the house is 2 blocks up, it's bumper to bumper, 2 blocks, and then no one can leave. So they're all like hanging out outside the party, inside the party. We had helicopters with searchlights over our backyard, like yelling in loudspeakers, 2 a.m. to disperse. And so you understand, like God saw my parties. So when I found out, and when I got to Israel and I found out we're commanded to party.
This is my religion.
Forget Islam. They don't even drink.
So when I found out we're commanded to party, and I'm not going to throw as big a party as I can possibly throw, I had to throw the biggest party I could possibly throw.
It's true. You have to go back to the same place.
Yeah, I had to do the whole thing, and we did it. We did it for years and years and years. And when COVID hit, I figured I'm graduating. Enough of that.
Pass the torch.
Nobody got time for that. So let someone else throw those giant parties. We're still, every night's packed, but it's not like, it's like toned down. We brought the sukkah down to size for the family, for the Corona shutdown sukkahs. Then the next sukkahs we enlarged it, and more people came, and so next year I think we're going to make it a little bigger too. Again, we're slowly like retaking this spot. Yeah. So back to Purim, you were saying.
So you're about what you
do you dress up?
You dress up, right?
What's the minhag?
Why do we dress up?
I wear different things. My wife creates outfits for me. So right now she's like, this year's apparently a new outfit, so she wants me to like take it to the next level. So she's sewing me some kind of thing, some really cool fabric she found. I'm not sure what it's going to be.
Is it a jalabia?
It's maybe similar to jalabia. The last few years she had me in an absolutely beautiful Indian, like Native American headdress, like a warrior headdress.
That's cool.
That she made, and so I've been wearing that the last.
Feathers and the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's got peacock feathers coming out the top. It's crazy. And I keep it in my meditation spot. And it's kind of like still kind of on the side. I don't put it on, but...
What's the meditation of Purim?
You don't put it on when you meditate.
We were learning this morning that like Rav Richamar in the B'yam Darkecha, it says like the meditation of Purim is like, contemplating on this unity of Hashem, the reality that we're not stuck in the matrix. Do you have anything else to add? Maybe let's say up until Purim, how do we prepare from now 20 days?
Also, before we go to that, maybe I wanted to just know from you, sorry to interrupt, but like, why, since we're already on dressing up, why do we dress up really? Maybe it's connected to everything of Hashem, but like how and...
Yeah, so...
I never really thought about that, to be honest.
The dress up's a little interesting. There's a lot to be said about it. One of the things is that we're always dressing up every day, and it, in a way, it's by dressing up on Purim, we're recognizing that we're in costume all year. It's the day that's the healthiest day in the entire Jewish calendar, because that's the day we laugh at ourselves. Anyone who can't laugh at themselves, we're a nation that laughs at itself. Once a day, we dedicate an entire day to just make fun of ourselves. We make fun of the rabbis in spoofs, play skits that are put on in the the big academies, and we just make fun of ourselves. We are just jokers, and it is so healthy. If you're always serious, because we're known to be like kind of serious, and if you're always serious, that means you're eventually, you're just the shell of you. There was a famous story, not a famous story, an amazing story of the Satmar Rebbe, who was like kind of the father of American Hasidim. You know that story.
Yeah, but go ahead, please.
So it's no clown had ever had the courage to mimic him. At the end of a wedding, they have a guy who gets up and makes everyone laugh for the end of the night for a couple hours.
Badchan.
Called a badchan, like a clown, a jester.
Eli Melech Biederman is technically a badchan.
Batchan.
Really?
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah,
He started out as a Batchan for the Rebbe, yeah.
Whoa. So, anyway, no one had ever mimicked the Rebbe, the Satmar Rebbe, but he went over to the Rebbe and he said, Rebbe, can I please mimic you? The Rebbe was very old at the time, and he wanted to mimic him. He was the top badchan.
Wow.
So he let him. He does a full, exact imitation of the Rebbe. People are laughing so hard.
I mean, praying of him in Shmoneh Esrei, right? Or something like that.
Praying too?
It's him praying. No, he's like, he imitated him praying or something. You know?
It was more than that. I think it was a few things, but I didn't know he did his prayer.
And like the tefillah was the thing that like once he started to cry, right?
Anyway, the Rebbe, when he was done doing the thing, he looks over at the Rebbe like how the Rebbe's handling all this, and the Rebbe was crying. And he ran over to the Rebbe. He says, Rebbe, I'm so sorry. What did I do? And the Rebbe says, no, I'm not crying about you. I'm crying that maybe all these years I've been mimicking myself.
It's crazy.
So that's a very Purim Torah, that we're all locked into some character we've taken way too seriously. And we're going to make fun of that on Purim by doing something uncanny, doing something absurd in what we wear that day. We're gonna throw that character we've taken so seriously into the garbage for one day and just dress up in something. But so now I got to choose what to wear. So if I'm already choosing what to wear, what if I chose to wear my biggest fear? Or what if I chose to wear the self I don't want anyone to know about? What if I chose to, meaning it's all about the hidden. Yeah. So we all pretend we're courageous, but there's things we're afraid of. So what if I dressed as my biggest fear? And what else is hidden in me is that I'm really some other kind of person, and I dress as that person. And of course, people are going to get it. You know, I'm giving it up now because people are going to see me dressed as that person and see how much I'm in that character. Like that's really.
I heard a story recently. There was a guy that a very heilige Yid, one of the Chassidim in the generations after Baal Shem Tov, that he had a very, very deep desire to be a Rebbe. He had like this inner passion. I want to be a Rebbe. Like, you know, and you're not meant to have that. You should grow into it maybe, but you shouldn't go out, I'm going to be a Rebbe. All the Pirkei Avot is against all the Gemara. So what did he do? He said, on Purim, I'm going to dress like a Rebbe, and I'm going to be a Rebbe, and I'm going to sit like a Rebbe, and I'm going to give brachas, and I'm going to give... On Purim, I'm going to be a Rebbe.
I'm going to be the Purim Rebbe.
And people, you know, first year, joke, and he's giving brachas and everything. Everything came true. Everything came through. Wow. Next year, again. So every Purim, he would dress in all white.
He became the actual Purim Rebbe.
Shrima, whatever. He became a Rebbe. Once a year, he was a Rebbe that brought down Yeshua, that brought down salvation for people with brachas. And I just heard this recently.
Cool.
But it's
who is he today?
I don't know who it is. I think it's, I don't know.
He's alive today?
No, I don't. I think it's it's in Europe. I think it's the generations after Baal Shem Tov.
That's cool.
It was a regular Yid that was holy, of course.
Felt he was meant to be a Rebbe.
But he had this passion. Because he had the passion, he stopped himself from being a Rebbe, because it's not a healthy thing to have inside of you, right?
Sure.
To chase after it for that. But he couldn't ignore it, and it taps in with what the Rav said, just like maybe it's the side that you don't want anybody to see, maybe it's the side, you know, that was for him. And I don't want everybody, I can't allow myself to be a Rebbe during the year if it's coming from a place like that. But on Purim, it's a nikudah that I live with, you know, that's a very...
Maybe with my... Maybe there's something to do with that in me, because there was one Halloween in California, the biggest Halloween party maybe in the world. It got shut down by the police eventually, but it was the biggest Halloween party in the world. And it was I went full Hasidic Rebbe. Not that I even knew what that might look like, but I guess from seeing Fiddler on the Roof maybe. But I took from a wig payas and a black hat. And I don't even remember what I wore, but I was a rabbi. I remember walking down the street on California in Santa Barbara. I had a priest on this side. I had a Muslim on this side, someone dressed as a Muslim. And the three of us partied for like hours together. But I remember walking down the street with them on either side of me. And I didn't know nothing. Like, I had no idea.
But you were the Pintel idiot back then.
Yeah, I guess it was.
It's amazing.
We have to watch time a little because I'm leading a meditation for
So we're
the
gonna
Yeshiva.
We're gonna wrap it up. Just
Yeah.
one last question that we had that we wanted to touch on is, why is it we talked a lot about creativity and special souls and these stormy souls. Why is it that more creative people and more artistic people struggle with halacha, with such a integral part of Judaism?
That is.
It also came out of Tzfat. That came out of the same city of the Sod. That came out of the same city of the
Halacha.
Pnimiyut. Shulchan Aruch came out of here.
Right. You would think they should go together, but the first of all, wherever there was Shulchan Aruch, where there was halacha, there were chachamim, and chachamim are the ones learning the Kabbalah, even though that's the most artistic place. So why is Kabbalah the most artistic place? Because when you get on the higher levels, esoteric levels of learning Kabbalah, you're going to these places where you're talking about the cusp, the border between oneness and then something, which, not talking about physical something, which is called Chachma, like the beginnings of Chachma, which the Mittler Rebbe of Chabad writes about, that no one even learns those Sfarim. It's so high and esoteric that these things, and the Baal Tanya also goes deep into this, but going from total ayin, like absolute nothingness, into the first levels of something, meaning esoteric something, Chachma. That outer edge is something that you need great brains to approach. So it's the same people learning the halacha who have those brains of the Torah are the ones who learn that part of the Kabbalah. What is an artist? An artist is someone, true creative artists they are people who have been, I don't know, genetically or spiritually, I don't know what it is, but they are the embodiment, based on their medium, whether it's painting, whether it's sculpture, whether it's dance, whether it's music, whatever it is. They are the embodiment of the outermost edge into embodied knowledge. They don't get to the embodied knowledge. The artist himself doesn't. He doesn't himself know what he's creating. It's just coming out of his body if he's a dancer, or it's coming out of his music if he's in music.
We just learned this morning.
And it's coming out of through his paintbrush if he's in paint, or sculpture. He is translating that to the world for the eventual embodiment of that knowledge by the intellectuals, who will then pontificate that art, and now it becomes what's called pnim in Kabbalah. So there's what's called makif.
Oh, so the artist creates the makif?
The artist dances in the makif.
Okay.
And without any das, without any seichel, it's a very pormdik. Without any knowledge, he's dancing on that edge and drawing it down.
He allows it because he mingles there. He brings this more down for someone else.
But in a way, it requires a person who's not so articulate. And that's why they're not really good at the halacha stuff. First of all, just spending the time to study, it's not their fancy. They're not intellectuals at all. At all. They're nehiz, netzach hod yisod, which, by the way, is where netzach and hod is where nevuah comes through. So it doesn't mean you certainly have to know Torah and halacha to become a prophet, but prophecy comes through netzach and hod, which is where the artists are, and they're dancing on that outer edge, but they don't have a knack, first of all, for studying the books so much, except for those that do, but most don't. And the other thing that's happening with them is they're so connected.
Yeah.
That, the rest of us we know that without our observance, and especially of mitzvahs lo saseh, meaning negative commandments, all the laws and the thousands of halacha, the thousand of laws surrounding our avoiding doing the negative commandments, the thou shalt nots, all of that avoiding is, we know that we're going to be spiritually skunked in the matrix. We'll be stuck in this place if we are involved in that stuff, because if that's the punishment of someone who wants to ignore the thou shalt nots, you get stuck in the matrix. Then all of a sudden, this thin membrane of the physical world becomes the world. It's all the world. And then you're stuck here. While these artists who dance outside of that realm can't understand why we're bothering them with details. Now, that's very dangerous for them because they have to hold to the same. If they want to be spiritually healthy, they're going to have to do exactly as we do with their observance of avoiding those negative commandments. They don't have a special dispensation just because they dance good.
So on the one hand, they're special neshama, but on the other hand, they have to really balance this their whole entire life. Because if they don't conform to the halacha, they kind of lose their artistic sense in a way.
Well, they'll lose everything in the end. Which, and lose their balance and their emotional stability, everything, and God knows what else, Like I said, you get locked in the matrix.
Halacha is good for us.
Very good for us.
Yeah. For our good is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's what they are. They are the people who dance on that outer edge, and they have to generally be underpaid. They have to generally be underpaid so that they struggle, and then because somewhere in their suffering is where the muse begins.
The inspiration to create and to push on.
And it's very strange and unfair.
I think the end the camera. I was thinking, when is it gonna end?
Let's see. Yeah. Is it?
So we didn't get to say goodbye on camera.
Hashem. You turn it back on or no?
I have to charge the battery.
No, so leave it right now. We'll say it on the audio. Thank you very much for the Rav Yom Tov Glaser.
Yeah, no, just
Thank you for joining. A little bit of an abrupt stop, but it's all from Shemaim.
Yeah.
And V'ezat Hashem.
Couldn't.
If you enjoyed this, share
anymore.
it, subscribe, like, all the different things, and V'ezat Hashem Siyata Dishmaya will continue to spread this message further and further to inspire people to connect to themselves and to have a Freilich in Purim.
Amen. And if people want to check me out,
exactly.
I'm on YouTube and
Instagram.
My website's rabbiyomtov.com.
We're going to have it all down in the descriptions below. Yeah. So make sure you check out the descriptions, subscribe, like to both of our channels, and get this message out. And may you all be blessed with a very, very, very inspiring Purim. And only good news.
Oh, man. I tell you.